Yes, my name's Reverend Cecile Pierce. I have been a person who has lived at the Noah shelter prior. Now I have resourced out and through the advantages of life and God's will. Um, as I stayed here, I was actually placed in here for the simple fact that I was living out in the field on the streets and in camps. I worked the outreach program. In the program itself of outreach, we get people into resources. Found myself coming from an abusive situation and ending up having to stay in the shelter. I ended up staying here for about, I'd say about 3.5 years altogether. And even though it took me a while because my circumstances are different than a lot of other people, the shelter does supply and help a lot of people along the way. They have housing programs, they have different areas. If you really work for yourself, you're able to do it. I now live in a very nice little cottage that has worked out well for myself. I still do my ministry work on the outreach program. I have found that there's a new world, there's a new life, there's a new beginning, and I can't thank everybody along the way. God bless and keep you all. And from the bottom of my heart, may the Spirit go with God and with you. Thank you.
It's very hard. It's very hard to be out on the street, especially the weekends. There's nothing open like this past weekend, but I believe they opened the shelter this past Saturday. But it's very hard to be out on the street and have no money and nowhere to go. It's awful. It's awful, awful. Many times people just huddle in the bandstand on Main Street or in the gazebo just to keep warm and stay alive. And then like at 3 o'clock, everybody heads up here. And you'll see all our people out front. And then by 3:30, somebody's usually in and will open up the foyer for everybody to come in, at least to get warm, have a glass of water, whatever, use the bathroom. So, but it's not easy. You learn a lot. You learn a lot. But everybody's different, you know? Everybody's different.
The homeless are just people that have been displaced for many different reasons. It could have been from an accident, from a home being sold where they can no longer afford to find a viable place to live, and they don't want to leave Cape Cod. They're born and brought up down here, and they just don't want to leave here. So they come to the shelter.
Most of my family came down here following my mother and my father. So I was the last, to come. Because I like the inner city and there's a lot of opportunity and a fast movement. But when I moved down to Cape, it was really hard for me. The job situations were just for like the tourist season. They wasn't paying that much. And the type of work I was doing was working in nursing, and I was getting paid like good money. But I had some problems in that area, so my license kind of froze. Came down to Cape and trying to find an apartment. Apartments are very high, no rent control. It's very scarce. It's hard to get jobs in the winter time because of everything closes up.
My feeling of the homelessness on Cape Cod has increased is based on a couple of areas. One is housing is a major key issue for the Cape Cod area, because the Cape Cod is a seasonal area for business, et cetera, et cetera. And rates stay up, and they don't go down. They just stay where they are. So there's a combination of things, but mainly it's because of the work. It leaves once the shop shut down. That's it for a lot of people because of seasonal work. And some people, some families just cannot up and leave and go to Boston or other areas where there are more jobs. And I think other areas have the same difficulty as we do, but we are hit a little bit harder.
We serve people who may have some kind of physical disability or chronic illness combined with, a physical injury that prevented them from being able to continue the livelihood they had. As a result of this, they may become depressed. They may turn to substances to help ease that depression. They have, obviously, at that point, financial issues. They might lose their health insurance benefits, which makes it harder to access the services that would help them to get out of those situations. They've lost their housing. They can't afford to rent someplace or even stay in a motel. They just may not have friends and family on the Cape who are in a position to help them because their friends and family may have things a little tight economically themselves.
I'll give you an example. I took a phone call from a fella who will keep anonymous, but he called me from the Falmouth area last week about his son who was staying in a hotel room. The hotel wanted him out because the summer's coming and wants to double the rent, and the son can't afford it with his SSDI. Son has mental health issues and he has a substance abuse issue. So out of nowhere, I got a call from the father, and I drove to Falmouth and met with the father and the son, and we talked, and I ended up getting the son, after a short stay on a crisis unit, into the Pilot House program, which is another important piece on Cape Cod. It is a shelter for men and women with substance abuse issues where they can work and talk about what's going on with themselves and their problems and work at the same time. Pilot House is also connected with the outreach work. There are some great stories that come out of there. There are some people that graduated out of there and are still doing well. And there are people who still live in there and still remain clean and sober to this day and are working. So that's another program that I would recommend and have the community help as much as they could.
A lot of it is compassed with mental health issues like depression or anxiety. A lot of individuals that I've done interviews with they had very good jobs. They were prominent. A lot of them were homeowners. A lot of them had families here on the Cape. A lot of them were, they were out there, had good careers. A lot of them have above high school diplomas or, a college education. So by all means, most of the population that I deal with are not those what you so-called deem the low bottom, lost soul, if you will, the one shoe on, the one shoe off type of alcoholic or addict. A lot of them are very educated. A lot of them have very good quality skills. But a lot of times, like I say, being this area, a lot of times individuals fall into that. They either get laid off because the jobs are scarce, or they run into issues of their own with addictions. And so things fall apart for them. And and then they, the snowball effect. One thing happens and the next, depression sets in. They start drinking a little bit more, try to get that relief. The next thing you know, they get all tied up into other drugs, and, they're off and running, and they lose the house, and, just one thing after another. And so a lot of times when people come to me, I try to use the harm reduction model as meeting them where they are and trying to put those pieces, or help them put those pieces back together again to the best of our ability. And sometimes it means treatment long term.
I guess I'm okay. I mean, I've taken some of the suggestions that have been handed to me. and use them. You know, not always with a grain of salt, but I did. I could still use a few more. Never hurts. But they're always there for you. All the staff is always there for you. You know, no matter how you feel that they don't like you or they think Suzanne doesn't like you for whatever reason. Suzanne is a busy, busy lady. She's not always walking around with smiles. So people feel that she just don't like them or they're scared of her or whatever, you know. But it's not like that.
It could happen to anybody. It's a very scary thought, that if we are just like anybody who has, for some reason, ended up homeless, then that means we are vulnerable to that, and that's very frightening. And it's also easier to keep the status quo than to think about making any kind of changes. If people who are homeless are being taken care of and they like it that way, that's a lot easier than to think about, well, they don't like it that way and it's really not a very humane thing, and maybe we need to do something out of ourselves to help rectify the situation.
Anyone who's chronically homeless, we basically treat as somebody who's chronically ill in a non-medical way. We make them as comfortable as possible, dealing with their issues. Basically, there are mental health issues in someone who's chronically homeless. And we work with them little baby steps to keep them safe, to keep them fed, to keep them healthy. You can get very angry if you let it get to you. Why don't they want to do something? There are very few chronically homeless people, but the few you have, you really have to treat with kid gloves, come out of your own thoughts and get more into their thoughts and see why they're there and just how you can help them.
And we just try to give them that love. It's a home atmosphere. We don't have a lot of rules, but the rules that we have, we just, we ask you to go by them. And for the most part, they're very receptive to that model, that style. And it's based on the harm reduction style, that you come in, this is your home, and you treat people with respect and dignity, and you get the same back. And we work on a treatment plan, areas where that we need to address on the, if it's medications, if it's health issues, if it's, it's usually primarily substance abuse and mental health. And so we address those issues with that person. And we've been very successful, very successful.
Well, last year I did a year in college. So I'll go back, whether I go back in January or not until next fall. I'll go back, get my associates, and probably end up working right here, hopefully. Yeah, yeah. Either here or Champ House or Piles, whatever. Yeah. One of these little things with our people in it. Yeah, definitely.
A lot of the issue is that it's that stigma that really blocks, it's that ignorance that really blocks the truth from coming through. And the truth is that these are just people. They're not homeless. The label needs to go away. They're human beings. They're human beings in trouble. And we as a society, we as a community, not necessarily responsible for that, but we should try to give the hand up. Not the handout type of attitude.
No, it's a wonderful place. You couldn't ask for a better shelter. Not that I always agree with some of their things that have to be done here, but the flip side of that is everybody that's let in here is over 18 years old. And you're an adult, and if you do something that you're not supposed to be doing, well, then there's consequences to everything, as far as bans and what have you. But there's nothing here. How can you not like it? Everybody goes out of their way to help you. They really do. But if you want to be a jerk, well, that's on you, and they do what they need to do. But they give you everything here. They really do.
It's not a kind of thing that you plan and say, you wake up one day and say, geez, I think I'm just going to, get homeless, be homeless and, lose my job and become an alcoholic and stop putting needles in my arm and go a ruin. No. So I think people, you know, have to get rid of that attitude of why should I, and they start looking at the attitude, why not? Why not help? Why not help them out?
It's once been said that a lot of people live one paycheck away from homelessness. I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but I think just being a human being, we should all care about homelessness.
The homeless are here to stay, and people need to know that. I believe there always will be homeless people. I mean, you look at, for instance, right now, the price of gas, cost of living, that families are struggling. Single people are struggling.
I ask a lot of people, why are you out here? I mean, you could, very easily change the situation if you want to, and a lot of them just give up. They're so frustrated by the way they're treated. They're so frustrated by the way they're living. They're so frustrated by just the whole thing that they feel that it's better for them just to go away and be lost in the woods, or go away and be lost and just, throw their hands up and say, forget it. And that's where I just tell them that, that they are a worthwhile individual, that they do have purpose. There is a reason why they're in the situations that they're in, but they can get out of the situation, and they can be mouthpieces. They can be instruments to helping other people who are involved in similar situations, and that they do have purpose. There is a reason, and that they are human beings, and they deserve love just like everybody else, and they deserve care just like everybody else. And so, they're not the animal, go hide. Come back to us. Be part of our community. Embrace us with your knowledge, your skills, your thoughts, your love, your feelings. And together, all of us can be a society. And I mean, I truly believe in that. And I give that all the time. And they respond very well. I mean, some they're skeptics, but that's okay too. That's okay too. But for the most part, it's about being, it's about, that dignity and that respect, and it's that love. And they don't need to be out there. And there's no reason for them to be out there, because they have purpose. There's a reason why they're here on this earth. And their story is worth hearing 1,000 times. And where they've been and where they're going is worth every effort. Every effort.
Surely people can remember back when Katrina came to Cape Cod, the victims of Katrina. I worked with them. I donated a lot of my time up there at the air base, and we took care of them. And those are people who live in another state. I'm talking about taking care of our own, people who live on Cape Cod. Some, not all, are taxpayers and have contributed to the economy. So once again, I would plea and make this plea to have the community look at this problem and react to it, and help out as much as they can financially.